Marty T Hawkins here with Warehouse and Operations as a Career. I'm back in Texas. It's cold and it's wet, but I'm glad to be back home. So let's see, what am I going to talk about today? I had some bullet points laid out. Can't seem to find them now, though. Oh, here we are. So while I was out traveling the last couple of weeks, I got to thinking about the narrow aisles that we're seeing more and more frequently today. Now, of course, thinking of those kind of led me to think about forklifts and the price of real estate or the value of an individual location. So I started doing just a little bit of research. I also want to talk a little about how we're all coaches in a way, at least a little bit. But let's start off with a little self-education on forklifts. What better place to start than something on the history of the forklift? So I went to packagingrevolution.net, and this article was by Rick LeBlanc back in, it was on March 9th of 2019. I found it interesting. I'll add the link in today's notes so you can check it out easily. The article was from the Palletizer, a U.S. Naval magazine for suppliers during the Second World War. Kind of reviews the history of the forklift up to the mid-1940s. The Palletizer was a key communication medium of the Navy to share materials handling, like things like best practices with its suppliers. I think I'm going to go back and check some of the archives. I bet these would be really interesting to read. Anyway, the article goes on to say, and a lot of this we've already learned together, but I love hearing it explained in so many different ways. So over 100 years ago, the first contribution towards scientific material handling equipment appears to have been the two-wheel hand truck. Can you imagine something made by local manufacturers using wrought iron axles and cast iron wheels? That thing would have to have been heavy. Back in the last century, every railway station of any size had its own version of a hand-operated four-wheel wagon, or I think they called them platform truck carts. Although everything had to be loaded by hand, they could carry much heavier loads than the little two-wheel hand trucks could. Then along came 1906, and an official of the Pennsylvania Railroad in Altoona, Pennsylvania, added storage battery power to a baggage wagon, producing what was possibly the first powered platform truck. If you remember, back in 2018, we did an episode once when WAOC was on a road trip visiting Greensburg and Altoona, Pennsylvania. I wish I'd have known about all this then. I bet there's a pretty good museum or something like that out there. Anyway, this article states that the controls were placed out in front, so the operator worked it from, up there. I'm sure it didn't take long before word spread and every yard had a powered platform truck. Another little fun fact from the article is that the first portable elevator on record in the patent office was built of wood in 1867 with uprights and cantilever platforms, and kind of like a hoist. Oddly, it took over 40 years for the idea to catch on. Over the years, things like ball bearings were added to wheels, and axles were improved and made much lighter. And in 1913, a truck appeared with electric power to the combined vertical and horizontal handling ability of the new lifting trucks. And the article goes on to mention the first skids and when they were used. Since we could now pick up flat objects, skids would have been a game changer. There's a whole lot more information, within the article. It's called History of the Forklift. The link is in the show notes. It's well worth your time to read, but I've got a little more ground to cover, so I'll encourage you to go check it out. Here's another one. I've added a link from gearflow.com. The article sounds a little odd, but the information really made me think about all the different types of equipment at our facilities. It's titled Renting or Buying the Right Types of Forklift. The blog or article does a great job of helping you break down the many different kinds of forklifts that are being used in our industry. I really liked how it helped describe several different types. The counterbalance, of course, kind of the workhorse in a warehouse. Sometimes we refer to these as set-down forklifts. And as we've learned before, there's many different attachments that are designed for these lifts as well. Then they mention the side loaders. These are really handy for long loads like piping and lumber. Some of these versions had multi-directional wheels and can turn 90 degrees in any direction. They're useful and really cool. Next, they talk about the order picker forklifts. Maybe you've heard them referred to as cherry pickers. Unique and, really great when a full pallet of product is not going to be needed. Say only 1 or 2 cases of something that may be on level 4 or 5. An order picker is perfect for the task. Have you ever heard of a telehandler forklift? These are heavy-duty trucks. Because of their extending telescopic boom, now not a mast, but a boom, these types of lifts are sometimes mistaken for cranes. These things can reach inside a trailer to receive a pallet, transport it, and then lift the load to its desired height. Pretty slick. You know, our industry, or at least I've never gotten to operate a rough terrain forklift, but they're out there. I'm sure you've seen them. I pass a roofing company every day on my way to the training center, and they have one out in the yard. I think it stays outside all the time. Sometimes it looks like they've taken it mudding. It's a pure workhorse in that environment. The blog goes on to talk about reach lifts too. They talk about several different kinds and, their different uses. It's really interesting, and I think I read that entire section. We all know how versatile a reach lift can be. And of course, what would a great article be if it didn't mention the pallet jack? Anybody dare to take a guess on how many different models of the pallet jack there are? If you have a guess, send it to us at host@warehouseandoperationsasacareer.com because I do not have a clue. And it goes on to cover a quick review of the different classes of forklift. Things like Class 1 electric motor ride trucks, electric and for indoor settings where exhaust may be a concern. Class 2 electric motor narrow aisle trucks. Again, they're going to be battery for moving inventory in narrow or tight spaces. Class 3 electric motor hand truck. Battery operated, quickly unloading or loading delivery trucks and hauling short distances are their major uses. Class 4 internal combustion engine with cushion tires. Gas, diesel, and maybe propane. They're kind of for low clearance situations. Class 5 internal combustion engine truck with pneumatic tires. Again, gas, diesel, or propane, but typically these could be used indoor, but mainly outdoor where surfaces are really rough. And then Class 6 electric and internal combustion engine tractors. This is for the really serious stuff. This is really a great article, and they list a few more classes. I really urge you to check these posts out. I guarantee you'll learn something that you didn't already know. So changing gears now really quick. I've mentioned the Safety Pro podcast a couple of different times. Blaine Hoffman does a great job explaining safety to us in a way that makes it really interesting. Anyway, I ran across his episode number 59, 8 Critical Tips for Effective Safety Coaching, and my gosh, I listened to it like 3 times and read the blog post maybe 10 times. Of course, his approach was regarding safety. The more I thought about it, though, one could use it as a coaching tool, to kind of turn inwards towards us as associates and leads or supervisors. I really encourage you to check out his episode number 59 and read his post on it. Let's take just a couple of minutes and look at just a few of his 8 points so you can kind of see my train of thought when you're checking it out. Okay, number 1, don't assume leaders know how to coach. I know I was thrown into those kinds of roles before. Let's all make sure we teach our coaches. And then number 2, make sure it's a two-way conversation. Remember how we've talked about the importance of listening before? Always practice our listening skills when we're having a conversation. And number 3, provide just enough structure. When we're coaching, we have to have a plan. I'm talking a lot about coaching. This isn't meant for just management. We as employees, operators, and admins kind of coach others daily, don't we? Think about it. You do, right? And then number 4, avoid punishments. I want to say negativity here. I won't go through all 8. Go check it out, though. It will make you think. Well, I have to move on today. I hope you got something out of today's episode. I know I learned a lot putting it together. Until next week, self-educate, plan your days, and practice all you've learned about safety, both at work and at home.